Yeah, I wanted to join you.
Thank you. I'm right here with you. I've got my Waffle House mug.
Oh, sweet.
And believe it or not, I bought it from Waffle House. I didn't steal it like a lot of people want to believe.
You
They're like,
didn't
there's
get it
no
on
way you
eBay.
purchased that. No, actually, it's funny. I've got this. My brother and I do this. We have this thing where if we see a glass that we like in a restaurant or somewhere, it's just we ask the server or waitress or whoever's there and just be like, can I have this? And usually they say yes, which is kind of funny. But in this case, Waffle House was like, we actually sell those, so you can if you have like $5, you can have it.
Oh,
I was like, oh,
sweet.
believe it or not, I have $5. Cool. Yeah, let's get going here. We'll hop right on into it. So we'll go in three, two. Welcome back to the Tipsy Theology podcast, and I'm your host, Paul, and today I'm joined by Jay Aedo. He's a children's book author, practical philosopher teacher, and an international entrepreneur. Pretty extravagant stuff. He has a book today that we're going to be focusing around called Conscious Bible Stories, which approaches children's biblical teachings from a gentler, more conscious perspective, turning away from narratives that stir up victimhood, anxiety, and self-blame at a young age. Jay believes retelling these stories will show the next generation that God wants them to feel empowered and confident in themselves without the weight of fear and shame. So welcome, Jay.
Thanks for having me, Paul. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited. And it's funny, I have to say, because this happened to us. Time change is kind of terrible, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so confusing. I don't get it. I was just talking about it. I was like, why do we do this? Just wake up at whatever time you want to wake up. If the sun's
Yeah.
out, it's out. If it's not, it's not.
Yeah. Yeah, it's gotten so much harder to wake up now because I'll wake up and it's still pitch black, and I'm like, this is when I'm supposed to be up, but there's no sun.
Yeah.
I don't know what we're saving. I don't think we're saving daylight.
Yeah, I don't think it's possible to save it.
No, it's just kind of it is what it is.
Some things just don't
So
need saving.
it's true. Just enjoy it while it's here.
Yeah.
That's where we should be going. But do you guys, because you're in Ecuador right now, do you guys not have daylight savings there?
No, they don't do that here. Uh,
That's got to be so nice.
yeah, that's why I got so confused because I was on Eastern time until just this Sunday. I guess I was on Eastern, and so I
Do you
just
switch?
got.
Does it is it called a different time zone then, or is it still Eastern time?
No, it's called. I think it's called. I don't know. I think it's called Ecuador time, but
Oh, that's awesome.
but Ecuador has also the like an island, and they're like an hour ahead.
Oh,
But
interesting.
it's always like that. It never changes. It's always the time.
That's interesting. So right now they're Eastern time.
Right. Right. Exactly.
That's crazy. Yeah, it's too much. It's too much.
It's too much.
But I love the idea of not having to deal with it. I've had to deal with it my whole life, so it's just
Yeah.
kind of a part of life. But realizing that there are a lot of people that live without it is I'm so jealous of that.
I didn't know. I thought everybody did it. Arizona doesn't do it. I think they're
Yeah,
maybe
I just found
Hawaii.
that out.
Maybe Hawaii and Arizona, I think, are the only states that don't participate.
The only ones that have it right.
They're like, no, we're not going to do that. That's kind of dumb.
And when you think about it, I feel like Alaska's probably the only one that's actually saving or losing. Because don't they have like 12-hour days sometimes?
Exactly.
Yeah, not a bad way to go. Not a bad way. So I do have to ask you, what are we drinking today?
I have black coffee, Ecuadorian single sourced coffee.
Ooh, you have the good stuff.
How about you?
I'm here with some black coffee as well. I have a saying that if you don't like black coffee, you don't like coffee.
Yeah, I like the tank.
And mine's actually not quite as good. I'm sure it's an Aldi brand coffee called Adventure,
Okay,
and I was like, that sounds fun. Let's do that.
I like it.
It gets the morning started.
Cheers.
Cheers. So I like to pretend that I have an advanced palate on the show. So if you
Do
had to
you do
describe,
wine also? Do you do wine and other?
I do,
Okay, cool.
but I actually don't know what I'm talking about. So I just be like, yeah, that tastes like grapes.
Yeah. You
But
know,
if you had to, oh yeah, go for it.
I suspect nobody really knows what they're talking about. They just kind of pretend. So I think you're in a good space.
I think I don't know if you've heard this, and I'm probably going to get some of the details wrong because it's been a while since I've seen this. But there was a study done where they took a handful of sommeliers from around the world, and they got them all together and did a blind taste test. And they gave them two glasses of wine and said, "Here's a red wine and here's a white wine. Explain like the differences in flavor or texture, everything that you get out of it." So they go through these long explanations like, "Oh, I'm getting this flavor, two vastly different profiles." And then at the end of it, they said, "Cool, you drank the same wine both times."
Oh, got him.
I was like, "Uh oh." So yeah, so we're all here. So if you had to, what are the flavor notes you're getting from your coffee when you taste it?
Oh man, it's just black coffee. I wish I could say I can.
Like coffee.
I, honestly, because Colombia, my wife's Colombian, so she's
Oh, cool.
the coffee over there is supposedly the best. Uh, I don't know. It's the same to me.
It's the same.
I'm not that great at
Like it tastes
distinguishing.
like coffee.
Yeah, it tastes like coffee. It's more the feeling. Like it gives me like an
That's true.
experience, and it gives me like that little, a little jolt. I like it.
That's does it would you say it gives you like a warmer feeling, different kinds of coffee?
I do. I like it because in the morning, it's just a good way to just start your day, I feel.
Yeah.
But how I was just talking about it with my friend, and it's just an excuse to, we're addicted to something, but we're just
It's so true.
there's a lot of things I'm addicted to. This is just one I'm not willing to give up.
This is the most acceptable addiction that everyone can have.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to make really strong cuz I do tend to like more bitter and vinegary style foods and flavors. Um and so like a really strong cup of coffee in the morning is just like a gut punch. It's like this is a great way to start the day.
Totally. Totally.
That's awesome. So let's hop into this here. I'm curious. So actually I'm realizing now I actually didn't prep you for exactly where I wanted to go today, where we could focus, but I was really interested with the way you write and kind of like the your retelling of Bible stories, and I find it really fascinating that the one you sent me was Cain and Abel, and it's like, whoa, man, that's a strong start.
Hmm.
um, but I'm curious by this, as far as kind of like a through line for us on this episode, is the unintentional effect of Bible teachings. Because I think in this one, and I'll let you answer after this. Um, it's fascinating to me because I think that there is a level that we would agree on in that it hasn't been done right forever, or hasn't been taught the best way. And now I think probably where we will differ is kind of the how we correct that maybe. But I think that's kind of a fun place for us to talk today. So I'll let you go with that. If that makes sense.
Okay. uh, sure. Yeah, I mean, well, I'll start with the reason I started with Cain and Abel.
Yeah, please.
And I started with Cain and Abel, and I worked backwards through Adam and Eve and God and Lucifer stories. And the reason is because I really didn't like that story, but it for some reason
Hmm.
I always think of it. And so, the more I thought about it, the more I realized, like, are these stories teaching us where we come from? Like, are we the descendants of Cain and Abel? And then so it's like,
Mm.
I was thinking, like, why would this story be repeated when I know so many other stories where the character didn't kill his brother? There's
Mm.
just there's other stories to tell. And I wondered to myself, why is this story so prevalent? Why do we keep repeating this story?
Hmm.
I suppose, part of it to me is, to have an anchor to hold on to as to where we come from. And then I asked myself, like, if this is where we come from, then where are we going with this? Like,
Hmm.
is this even an efficient way of sharing that story? And so I just, being creative, I saw the story in a different way. Like, I saw the story in a, play out in a way that I would feel comfortable playing both characters, because I didn't resonate with either one of those characters. I don't want to be
Mm.
the brother that kills his brother, and I don't want to be the brother that gets killed by his brother. And he's the good one. He's
Yeah.
the noble one, and he
Yeah.
just dies. So it was like very off-putting for me, that story. And so I thought that taking the story apart and putting it back together in a way where I honor the original story, because I feel I'm shedding light on the original story
Mm.
and spinning it in a way where it makes me feel comfortable. There's also an aspect of, I feel like a lot has been lost in translation. Generation after generation, we're sharing a story with different languages and different approaches. So I'm thinking, like, is it even accurate? Like, why is it accurate? Why is this story the truth? So, a
Hmm.
lot has gone through my mind as far as processing that story, and I wrote it in the way I did because it made me feel strong. It made me feel
Hmm.
resilient. It made me feel like, even if I was the brother who attempted to kill his brother, he came out the other side a better man. And then they go
Hmm.
on to create history together, rather
Yeah.
than him running away from what he had done. Because, when God sends him away, it's really it's really the idea that he couldn't face his family after what he had done, and so he runs away. And so, it makes me think a lot about what God is. And it's not a voice coming from the sky that everybody hears. It's internal. Only you can hear God's voice, and it's telling you, like, you did something terrible, and you try to run away
Hmm.
from it, but it chases you. It follows you wherever you go. There's no escaping the truth of who you are, and what you've become. And so
Hmm.
I wanted to create this story where I'd be proud of whom I had become, even though I made a mistake. I feel like I gave Cain more like, uh, a way to prosper, a way to create a life for himself that he was proud of, and reunited him with his brother. And then they create a new story of abundance and creation. And so in the original story, Cain runs away and builds cities. Because in a
Hmm.
time where there aren't many people, so he's the one that builds cities. And so you would think that he learns the error of his ways and changes, but, knowing human nature, he doesn't. And so
Hmm.
we've become Cain. We've become this angry, resentful person who dwells on our mistakes. And so I feel like the story that I created, where, they reconcile, where Cain goes to kill Abel, but Abel sees the attack coming because he's composed, and he knows who God is. And then they're able to have a dialogue and clear up misunderstandings. You see, Cain didn't realize who God was. That's why when he went to do the offering, he didn't offer his best, because why
Hmm.
would he offer his best to someone he doesn't know? And then
Hmm.
Abel's able to show him, well, you already gave your best to God, because he had separated the best of his crops for himself and his family. And Abel is to show him, well, that's what God is. It's the best of yourself. And so they're able to reconcile this misunderstanding. And as soon as Cain realizes what he had done and how close he came to making a life-changing mistake, he begs for his brother's forgiveness. And Abel had essentially already forgiven him, which is why he, rather than retaliate with anger, he simply clears up the misunderstanding. And the reason this story resonates for me is because oftentimes the best relationships, the best communication that I have is when I find that there's a misunderstanding and I'm able to do my best to clear that misunderstanding up. And those are the best relationships in my life when we've gone through something like that and something did need to be cleared up, whether it be because of a language barrier or because of your upbringing. It's just because we speak the same language, oftentimes we're not saying the same thing. And so,
Yeah.
the best friendships are the ones where you go above and beyond in order to clear up what are you actually trying to say? Why are you saying it like this? And that's why I shared that story with you first, because
Yeah.
it's the one that's most prevalent for me that I think about a lot.
That's cool. Thanks for laying that out for us too. I think that's one thing that is interesting in the way that you're telling it is there is that redemptive action of it, and there is that focus on what you just said of, yeah, let's communicate with one another and define terms and come to reconciliation at the end of it.
Yeah, you get it.
Nice. Yes. Whew, I understand something. Yeah, it's there's a few things that I want to ask too that I find interesting, even in, because the way you said it was when you come to this story, you started off with like, yeah, I never actually really liked this story.
Yeah.
Because none of these characters really, and yeah, you're right. It's like, yeah, nobody wants to be Cain. And Abel, it's like, well, he ends up dead. I guess he did the right thing, but brutal.
Brutal.
So it's fascinating to me. So is this one of those stories when you went about kind of reinterpreting it? Was that more isolated, or did you seek to? How does this fit in the greater narrative of what Scripture is trying to tell of like these characters and the storyline?
Well, how did it come about? Is that the question?
I guess more of like the process in when you went to reinterpret it. Was that in light of, okay, what's like the greater story of the Bible in these character storylines throughout, or is it more like, let me just take this one event and kind of relook at it?
It was a process of doing my very best to understand why these stories were, why they were in my life, for one, why were they so prevalent, why they were prevalent in my parents' life and my grandparents' life. Like, why is these stories in general, in the Bible stories, why are these stories so a part of us? And then it came about more in conversation with a couple of friends, and got people you feel comfortable with. I was like, why, you just, why is it like this? Why is this story like this? And then it came about, well, what if it was like this? What do you guys think? And it was like, it's like it was a fun conversation. And then from there, I went to write it down. I was like, I think this is, I didn't know what it was. I didn't know it was a children's book story. I went for the children's book just because I felt like, well, this story was told to me as a child. I think it would be useful if this story was shared, because it's such a simple, short story. I think in the Bible, it's like a paragraph, like a very couple sentences.
Yeah, it's not very long.
Do these couple of sentences really have that much weight in my life? So I wanted to simplify it, but obviously it turned into a little bit longer than a couple sentences because I feel like I wanted to clear some things up. I did my best. I don't know.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
That's the hardest thing I find for myself, especially with episodes like this, where it's like, if you came for a quick, short answer, you came to the wrong place.
Right.
I don't know how to lay out a thought in 5 minutes or less.
Right.
Especially because they're going to be follow-ups. So it's like, oh man, we're going to have a lot to talk about.
Totally.
Yeah, it is interesting though you brought that up because this is a story that I remember hearing as a kid. And it's a funny pick where it's like, oh yeah, it's Cain and Abel. You get creation and like Noah's Ark. And it's like, wow, those are some pretty intense stories for kids.
Yeah,
David and Goliath is another one. It's like, wow, a lot of these are wrapped around people dying.
totally.
Kind of wild. um, yeah. So I'm curious as well. What are your thoughts on traditionally the way that the story has been told and presented? I guess two-part question. The first part of that is, what like where do you think our approach to telling this story, especially to kids, came from? And then on the B side of that question, I guess what were the effects of those, which we've kind of touched on a little bit, but kind of fleshing that out more. But the first side of that is, why do you think traditionally we've told it the way we've told it?
I think tradition has a big role where we just like to do things over and over because it makes us feel we're headed in a certain direction.
Mm,
I think that's more my innocent answer as to, I don't, a part of me wants to go to where like, if you get kids to believe something, you can control them forever. That's like the evil
yeah,
part of me. And
yeah,
and then and then the innocent part of me is like, I think it's just human beings doing their very best to their keep their belief going.
It's interesting the way in your answer with that, it reminded me of, I just saw this recently. I don't remember when this was done. There was a study that was done where they took like 10 monkeys and they put them all in this cage. And in the middle of the cage, there was a little ladder to a tower with bananas on top of it. And so what happened was, some of the monkeys are like, I want those bananas. So they started to crawl up this ladder to get them. And when they did, the people doing the experiment would pour cold water on them, so it would rain cold water, and it made them all really angry. And so that happened a few times, and over time they're like, oh, okay, when you climb that ladder, it rains cold water on us, so we don't want you climbing that ladder. So anytime
Right.
any of the monkeys would start to do that, they'd start to, rip them off and beat them up,
Sure.
the other monkeys. And they'd do that to everybody. Well, eventually what happened was they stopped pouring the cold water on them. But they had that conditioning of, oh, when you do this, that's what happens.
Right.
Well, then they removed one of the monkeys and put a brand new one in who had no previous experience with any of this. And so he was like, I want to climb that ladder for those bananas.
Right.
So as he did, the other monkeys, knowing that they're going to get rained on if he does, ripped him off and started beating him up. And they kept doing that, replacing the old monkeys with the new monkeys, until eventually none of the previous monkeys who had experienced the reasoning for that were in the cage. And the question at the end of it was, they're all living out this experience of, we don't climb that ladder, but
Right.
no one has any idea why we don't, or why we don't do that.
Nobody
And they're like,
even
well, that's
knows
just
about the cold water anymore.
right. Yeah, all they know is, oh, well, we don't do that because we don't.
Exactly.
And I feel like that's the downside sometimes with tradition. And what has happened is that we know what the stories are, but we don't know the reasons for the stories. We
Right.
just know, like, no, this is just what it is.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's one of the major issues I see with an unorganized religion is that they're just telling you to do it. They're not
Mm,
really telling you why to do it, and they're not really giving you an opportunity to ask why. Uh, and so I think that's kind of stealing your innocence, is removing your ability to ask curious questions. And so
yeah,
I think
absolutely.
if you give that back to us, in that monkey story you share, like if they're able to clear it up, like, hey,
Mm.
why is this happening?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, well, I don't want to get cold water.
Right.
Yeah, and then it's like, oh, now I see the reason behind this. Yeah, no, I think that's something that I love, and that's one of the things that I enjoy with people that are willing to be like, can we ask about this?
Yeah.
Because it's almost where there's a fear that has been created where, oh, if you ask that question, you're not a Christian, you're a bad Christian, or something bad's going to happen to you. But it's like, well, is it though? Can I just ask, like, this is kind of weird?
Yeah. Is something bad gonna happen because you're gonna beat me up because you don't like what I'm saying? Is that,
We just don't ask those questions.
yeah.
Yeah, and then so what was the B side of that question? Oh, the unintended or intended consequences to that. So where has that traditional view? Where do you think that? How does that get internalized? Like your experience, for example, growing up. How did you interpret that story? And do you think that interpretation was intentional or unintentional?
I don't think I consciously interpreted the story until much older in life. So as a kid,
Hmm.
you just go with things. You're not really judging why the stories are. These are just it's what's being put upon you, or it's what's being told to you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was well into my 20s, early 30s when I started processing what the effect of this story was on me.
Are you comfortable sharing some of those? Some of those effects?
Sure. I mean, well, this is why I actually like the story because I think it led me to a point where I had to question not only the stories, but a lot of my own choices, a lot of my own, self dialogue, if you will.
Hmm.
And so, you know, it led me to a point where I was in a lot of physical pain and I wanted to
Hmm.
understand the root cause of it rather than just putting, you know, covering it up, which I had
Yeah.
done for a while.
Yeah.
So, it was a lot of processing and understanding like what I'm doing isn't working. I need to do something
Hmm.
different. And that needed to
Hmm.
start, at least for me, with the story in my heart, the dialogue that I keep telling myself. And so it was really an awakening of realizing that I had to change my belief system. I had to change what I believed in order to go where I wanted to go. I
Hmm.
couldn't, when I closed my eyes and I saw where I was going with the current actions, it
Yeah.
wasn't leading me to where I wanted to go. And so once I defined where I wanted to go, it was more like working backwards to see what I needed to change. And it was a lot of,
Hmm.
you know, it was a lot of suffering in that change. I think there's a survival mechanism that doesn't want to change, that wants to keep
Yeah.
it cozy and warm, even though it's painful. But it's at
Yeah.
least pain that I recognize and pain that's, it's mine. It belongs to me. So it's almost like I don't want to let it go.
Hmm.
Uh, and that led to a lot of, self exploration and experimenting with diet and experimenting with my consciousness and just expanding my way of looking at things. And it's been about, 9 or 10 years now since I started
Hmm.
that process. And genuinely, I feel like I've come a long way.
That's cool. Yeah.
A lot of the ways that I tell these stories is like I tell these stories because I want to understand where I come from and I want to understand where I'm going.
Hmm.
And there's only one place you can do that. So it's like we're quite the powerful mechanism, as far as our mind is concerned, because we can time travel into the past. We can understand our traumas and we can't change what happened, but we can change our perspective as to how we reacted to what happened.
Hmm.
And then that's why I like these stories because you I feel like you can change the direction of your life, but you have to change what you believe in order to move forward with that. Because otherwise you can't move forward with a lie. So you literally have to
Yeah.
change your mind about things. And that's possible. You can change your mind about things.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think that right there is a powerful thing, especially the fact that we don't have to be stuck on the path that we are going on, but then recognizing, well, how do we get off of that path? And it is like, yeah, you do have to change your beliefs in your views of yourself. I think that's a hard pill to swallow, but it's an important one too.
Yeah. Yeah. I also think there's a practical way of doing it where, you know, for me, I did it where I wanted to understand why I believed certain things. And, I had to define what belief meant to me. And so
Mm,
when I dug into what belief means, the thing that distinguishes a belief from every other thought, there's plenty of thoughts I don't believe. So what makes
yeah.
this one thought something that I do believe? And, very practically speaking, you act upon what you believe. So oftentimes, I found in myself that I was contradictory in my beliefs. I would say I believed something,
Hmm.
but I sure wasn't acting like it.
Hmm.
And so the way I changed my mind was by changing what I believed. And the way I changed what I believed was acting as if I believed it before I
Hmm.
actually, it was just a thought. So I was like, well, what if I act on this thought?
Yeah.
Does that mean I believe it? After a certain period of time, if you keep acting on that thought, that's your belief. And that's how I
Yeah.
was able to change my mind about a lot of things.
Yeah, that's that. I can't remember who originally said it. I love how I know some of the, like these these experiments or thoughts that people have done, but don't know who to credit for. But it was that idea of the person who says, "Oh, I'm trying to quit smoking," versus, "Oh, I'm not a smoker," even though neither of them have actually quit yet, but they're attempting to. The person that says, "Oh, I'm not a smoker," is the one who ends up being far more successful, more often than not, because they've created this new belief system that says, I don't participate in that thing.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, the other one is trying, and
Yeah,
trying isn't doing it. It's trying.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's still holding on to the belief that you've always had, and then just
Right.
like, maybe I'll dance around with this new one.
Totally.
So I am curious too, because they're in the story, and you brought it up, kind of this idea that God isn't, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, that God isn't something that is separate than us, but it is something that, in a way, like is us. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I would describe it as, you know, because it's these stories of God and the devil. And this is
Mm,
light and dark. This is good and evil. And this is all within us. It's the story we choose to believe, and so it becomes a part of us. And so I believe, when I was a kid, my parents would have me point to the sky. And that's where
mm,
God is out. So it's like more training, as when we're kids, we're taught to look outward for our solutions, for our help. And I think that trains us later in life to always look outside of us for solutions. And I would argue
mm,
that God is within you.
mm,
Probably the best part about you is within your heart. And when you make mind decisions, very it's probably not pure as you're making a heartfelt decision. And so
mm,
I would say that God is within your heart, and I would say the devil lives in your mind. So he tries to control your thoughts. And so that's the battle within us, as far as I can see, that's the battle between God and Lucifer. It's really within ourselves.
mm,
You know what's good, you know what's pure, and then there's that darkness that comes in. What nobody else can see it. You don't have to do it,
mm.
and then you make a choice.
So that, because that's such a distinct difference, probably from how your parents had taught it. So what would you say is like the pivotal moment where you switched to this new perspective of God?
I think the most pivotal moment, strangely enough, was when I was, I came to these determinations, or this idea that was helping me in life. It was helping me cope. It was helping me rest. It
Mm,
was helping me heal. I didn't see a real pivotal moment until I was actually able to communicate this to my parents.
hmm.
And it was like I had to, there was something that told me that I had to break free. There was only one way to freedom, and the way to do it was to express this thought to the people that programmed you.
Hmm.
And so I put a
Hmm.
lot of thought into it because I didn't want to alienate my parents. I didn't want to eliminate
Yeah.
them, from my life just because my beliefs were different than them. And I didn't want
Yeah.
to change their mind. I didn't want to change their beliefs. I only wanted them to understand where I was coming from.
Hmm.
And so that was really the pivotal moment where
Hmm.
I was able to clearly express where I was coming from to my parents and then having them be receptive to it.
That's a big moment. Yeah. And I'm sure I can imagine the anxiety going into that of like this conversation could go so many ways.
Sure. It went a lot smoother than I thought it would. It went a lot smoother
That's
than
really
I thought
cool.
it would because I was able to really first I showed them how important they were to me
Hmm.
and how you know because I can also see that they regretted a lot of their choices. So I was able to set the tone
Hmm.
by putting them at ease as far as everything that they had done has led us to this moment and I wouldn't trade this moment for anything.
Hmm. Yeah, that's cool. I think that's that. I mean, that's kind of the beauty of relationship too. Is um, yeah, you can have those moments where even at the end of it, it's like, yeah, even if we don't share the same position on this, we can still love each other and care for each other, knowing those differences are there and still doing life together.
Totally.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Oh, I just had a thought. I was like, oh no, where'd it go? That's been my brain recently, where I'm like, oh, oop, lost it.
It's gone. It's gone forever.
It's like, oh no. um, the one thing I want to spend some time on too, because I mean, this is kind of the whole position of your writing, and I feel like your journey up to this point is looking at the tradition and then saying, okay, but what's the intent, and let me try to show where I've come from and where I've gone and where I'm at now, and try to tell the same or similar story, but from that perspective. Um, and I think that's something that's fascinating to me because when I think back to myself as a kid versus where I'm at now, and so this may come as no surprise to you, because for me, I believe that God is something that is outside of us, and that there is that because within me, it's like I don't have the ability to save myself. There is change that I can make in myself to make me like a quote unquote better person, um, or yeah. But there is that separation between me and God as far as like two distinct beings. Um, but the one thing that um, I guess want to hone in on a little bit here is that growing up, I felt like whether it was intended or not intended, but there was that like fear of hell that I think looms over a lot of baby Christians or like children, where it's like, oh
Sure.
yeah, like I don't want to go there. That's terrifying. But there seems to be a lack of this this love for God and the way stories are told. And I feel like Cain and Abel is one of those where oftentimes it can be told from a perspective of here's this guy who tried to cheat God on the sacrifice, and then here's a guy who did a good job, and it was acceptable, and then they had a tussle, and the evil guy got more evil, and the other guy was just dead, and it's like, oh, that's horrifying.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of stories can be that way. Even when we look at this is outside of Cain and Abel, but even when we look at like Noah's Ark, even from the very like happy, fun, sunshiny children's version of it, it's like, oh, but why was it flooded? And it's like, oh, because there was a lot of bad people, And it's like, oh, I don't want to be a bad person.
Right.
And I feel like there is like a lot of that anxiety that can be pushed on unintentionally, maybe because of that. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that? I just said a lot.
uh, I don't know. I think that there's something to the stories that are prevalent in our history. To me, they're not that efficient as far
Hmm.
as like, well, what do you, maybe they are efficient as to what they're trying to do. I'm not too sure what the intent originally was
Mm.
to create these stories. I can only see my intent.
Yeah.
I can see that, perhaps scaring quote unquote children with the idea of darkness or hell or a fiery pit. Uh, I don't know. I don't know if it's a great way of teaching. I don't.
Hmm.
I think maybe some people it would be very efficient. Like how some people you can yell at them and you can tell them work harder and do all. Some people handle that well, and other
Yeah.
people
Yeah.
cower. They're like, no, this,
Hmm.
and they're more soft. So I think it goes to a lot of our personalities and how we receive stories, and I think there's different ways of communicating with different peoples as far as an efficient way to get to where you want to go.
Hmm.
And I speak like that because what's the purpose of the story? Like you want to take the reader on a journey. You want to
Yeah.
take them somewhere. So where are you trying to take them? And so are you trying to make them scared adults? Is that where
Hmm.
you're taking them? Or are you trying to show them uh, the good and evil that they're capable of and allow
Hmm.
them to make a choice for themselves? And I think that's really what these stories are teaching us. I feel are what we're capable of. None of
Hmm.
us, most of us anyway, are not killing or thinking about killing our brother.
I
Most of
sure
us
hope
anyway.
not.
But sometimes I have dark thoughts. Sometimes if I'm
Yeah.
driving, I haven't driven in a while, but if I'm driving and there's a lot of traffic and I'm feeling anxious, I'm like, I could just run these people over. I can just, I the darkness, but I don't act on it. So it's
Hmm.
like I think these thoughts are there. I think that's what these stories want to tell us. Like, you're capable of this. You're capable of the darkest, most evil thoughts within yourself. But you're
Yeah.
also capable of clearing up the misunderstanding and moving
Hmm.
forward with a powerful story for you and your brother. We're capable of it. We're
Yeah.
we're we're, we're
Yeah.
not one thing. We're not one thing or the other. I think we're all of it.
Hmm.
And really our actions play out, and sometimes we get stuck in how we've been acting, and it's hard to break out of that pattern.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, it is easy for us to assume that yeah, this is the path, and that's what it is. But it is important, like you said, to emphasize more and more that no, there is a path to redemption. There's time and a chance for that, for reconciliation and redemption.
I believe that.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and I think that's cool because I think oftentimes we focus on the one thing and we just kind of continually reinforce that idea of like, no, this is just who I am. It's like, well, it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
I mean that's kind of the point of the story overall of the Bible. It's like, no, you don't have to be this way. You can be better than this. You can be redeemed.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So with that, because and I think it's fun that you chose children's books as the avenue for this. And so with parenting, and you said you just became a new parent or another.
Yep. No,
That's
I'm a new
awesome. Yeah,
parent.
congratulations.
Yeah,
That's
thank
so
you.
cool. That's got to come with I'm sure some motivation for focusing on children's books as well. Of like, all right, how do I parent my kids well, and kind of try to navigate away from some of those things that you might call mistakes or maybe not the most efficient that happened. Um, what was some of that processing, or the way that you're approaching or going to be approaching parenting? How has that changed based on this journey you've been on?
That's a good question. So for a long time, I think I felt a little bit fraudulent in my writing children's books because I was like, I'm not even a parent. So like what gives me the authority? But I move forward because it's like what gives me the authority to speak about anything? Like I'm
Hmm.
just curious and I want to speak about it and
Yeah.
that's it. I authorize myself to speak about it. And so, I was able to cope with not being a parent and writing children's books mostly because I have a lot of friends with kids, and I was
Hmm.
able to, I like talking to kids, because they're not, they don't have to filter out all the nonsense that we have to filter out.
Hmm.
Just they're more just they're pure. So I like seeing that, and I think the kids, like my friend's 5-year-old is a great teacher because you just
Hmm.
have to observe how innocent and curious their actions are.
Hmm.
And so I wanted to, as I thought about becoming a parent and being a good husband and a good father, I wanted to use these stories as a foundation for how I approached
Hmm.
being a father and a husband and a friend.
Yeah.
For me, it was essential to use this belief system that has helped me in my personal life. uh, it was important for me to use that as a foundation for building a family.
Hmm.
And I think that's why, I wouldn't say it took very long, but it was longer than I thought it would take for me to
Yeah.
find a partner and fall in love and, decide we wanted to have kids and do it on purpose.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, it plays a big role. I think about it a lot. I share it with my wife. Um, and, and for me, I think it makes me better.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm glad that you found that person too.
Thanks, man.
It's a lot harder than people might think sometimes.
Sure. Sure.
So, what would you say are maybe, in an everyday life, since that's something that can easily, like, more easily be compared? What would you say are some of the bigger differences in how you view like your day to day now versus before this journey that you've been on?
I would say a little bit more clear as to
Hmm.
what I want my day to be.
Hmm.
Uh, I don't have to focus so much on healing. I can focus a little bit more on creating. And I just feel like, at least for me, it's a more efficient way to live my life because I have it's a very narrow focused path as
Hmm.
opposed to having so many different options that I don't know where to go, what to do, how to act. It just really hones things in, as far as clarity for the day, and I'm
Hmm.
able to do my very best. I'm still working on several things, but I'm able to
Yeah.
do my very best to get myself to the end of the day where I feel tired to the point where I can
Hmm.
rest. And that's what I want my days to be. I want to wake up with energy and then expand that energy in an efficient manner so that I can
Yeah.
exhaust myself and go back to sleep and rest. You know, oftentimes, I feel so much, before more, but I would feel so anxious that I couldn't sleep.
Hmm.
Even though
Hmm.
my body was tired, my mind was racing. And I
Yeah.
and it's a little bit, maybe a few days a year I'll feel that way, but for the most part, I do feel at peace with myself. I feel at rest. I feel like I can fall asleep at night, without, my demons chasing me.
Hmm. Yeah. And nights when they come out.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like, they need that blanket for some protection.
Totally.
That's the one idea that I find so funny. That seems to be almost universal. That we're terrified, but as soon as like a blanket's covering ourselves a little bit, we're like, "Oh, I'm safe now." It's like,
Exactly.
where did that come from? Why is that the thing?
Yeah.
And then so even with parenting, um, what would you say are some preconceived notions or ideas that you had going into that that have been adjusted?
There are many things that would stand out to me as ways that I wouldn't raise my kids. You know, like when
Hmm.
my wife was pregnant, we would have a checkup. I didn't like the things that the nurse would impose upon us. You
Mm.
know, it
Mm.
felt like a lot of like fear things, like, oh, if you don't do this, this is the, you know, it felt like still the story of like the worst case scenario is being put upon you.
Mm.
And I didn't like that, and I don't think it's efficient for me and or my wife, because I feel like
Yeah.
if they put something on you and you believe it, it's almost like you're predestined to get there. And
Mm.
so and there was a lot of other stories, you know, other parents would say, "Oh, you're not going to sleep at night. You're not going to, you know, it's going to
Yeah.
just," and it's the truth is it's not that way. Like this baby
Mm.
sleeps
Hmm.
all freaking night. She's
That's
you
awesome.
know, my wife is not tired. She wakes up early. She, you know, and it's I just feel like I with my belief system I created a peaceful baby. At least that's the way
Mm. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of parents who are like, "Can I? Where? Why don't I have that?"
I
And so I am curious. This is maybe a loaded question, so take it for whatever it is. Have fun with
Okay.
it. So I'm curious. So what would be your reaction if with your second child if they're like, I'm not sleeping all night at all?
I mean, I think that would be a great lesson for me. I think, hey,
Yeah,
don't get
that's
so
it.
cocky. Don't get so cocky with your ability. I think you got lucky with the first one. Don't get so cocky.
And then every parent's like, "Yep, told you."
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like, "Oh,
Well,
easy guys,
I have
easy."
friends. I have friends who are the opposite, where their first kid was very, uh, you know, unsettled, if you will, and
Mm,
then their second kid was a little bit better. So I think maybe they learned, you know, a little bit better how to handle their pregnancy, how to handle their, you know, and there's,
yeah.
you know, I've had, you know, two, three friends that share that same story where the second one's a little bit easier.
Hmm.
We'll see. Maybe it's a little, maybe it's backwards for me. We'll see.
It could get even better. You never know.
It could be. It could be. Maybe the second kid comes out, you know, floating or something.
And you're like, it's gonna parent us actually.
Yeah.
They're the parents now. Oh, that would be wild. Yeah, that'd be awesome. But no, I think you're right in that. Yeah, how we approach something oftentimes can create that self-fulfilling prophecy of what it turns out to be. I think about that even when, since I'm not a parent, going into certain events or preparing for things that are unknown, but other people have experienced it and they're like, oh, it's going to be like this or it's going to be like that. And you create this image in your head of like, oh, this is what it's going to be, or I can do this or I can't do that. When in reality, it's like, I can kind of set that. Obviously, there's going to be I can't be perfect at it every time because there's going to be things that need to adjust. But yeah, if I walk into it thinking it's going to be, this event's going to be total chaos, there's probably a higher chance it might be total chaos because I prepped myself for that to be the case.
Exactly. I believe that.
What do you think the effects will be kind of going into specifically parenting or even just relationships with others, going into it with this mindset of let me set a goal of this is kind of what I want out of it, or let me try to avoid some of those some of those I f- some of those other like traditional approaches. How do you think that will shape those relationships or that parenting? And do you think that'll have what effect do you think that'll have moving forward?
On humanity, myself, what do you mean?
Uh, let's say humanity. Let's go big. Let's
Okay.
go big with
Okay,
it.
great. Perfect. I love this question actually. I see a great story for humanity playing out. I see the greatest story.
Hmm.
The story where we're very clear as to what we're doing here. We work together in the same way that ants work together,
Hmm.
where ants don't seem to take anything personally. You can wash them away, and they come out of it, and they're at it. They get back in line, and they do
Yeah.
their. And I believe this is a strange one, but I
Hmm.
believe that planet Earth is like a spaceship, and
Hmm.
our purpose as humanity is to take Mother Earth to a new solar system. Because as the story goes, our sun is a star and it's going to burn out. And
Mm-hmm.
that means the end of life for not only humanity, but planet Earth. So I think
Yeah.
humanity's priority is saving the planet, saving our
Hmm.
mother, and to guide her, like a spaceship into another solar system where the story keeps going. To me, that's the greatest story I can imagine, where we do
Hmm.
whatever it takes to keep the story going.
That's interesting. I haven't heard that. That's kind of cool. That takes. It's like. I wonder what the flat earthers would think about that.
Yeah, that's a good one. I wonder.
I like these mashups. That could be kind of fun.
Yeah, let's do that one, Paul. Let's bring a flat earther and
That would be great.
I want to see where their story is going. I'd love to hear them out. I've never
Yeah.
actually met a flat earther that has like a compelling argument.
I don't think one exists with a compelling argument. Not to call out every flat earther out there, but the one thing that I'm curious about is some guy hundreds of years ago said the Earth was round, and he just had like two sticks. So I mean, I'm just curious. I'm just here to listen. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. No judgment. I mean,
Yeah,
if he does a good job, I might buy his story. I might change my beliefs. I'm okay with that.
yeah. I'm down for it. I'm here for a good story.
Yeah, exactly.
So with that I guess that goal, motivation, belief that you have with our purpose in the earth and where everything's going, how would you say this thought process that you have toward these stories and our views of ourselves, how does that positively affect us accomplishing that goal?
Can you rephrase that? Sorry.
No, that's totally fine. I'm trying to find it as I'm going through it too. Because you're asking, or sorry, you're saying that we're kind of on this spaceship headed toward this new solar system to kind of save humanity. And so with the retelling you have of these old stories, how does that shape our that mission of let's find this new solar system, or is that something that is just going to happen regardless? Does that make
I
sense?
think
Yeah.
I think the story I just shared with you, as far as like where I believe we're going, I think it's
Yeah.
more of a fantasy,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah. Yeah.
something that if I see the best case scenario, that's the best case scenario I can possibly imagine
Hmm.
as for where we're going as a humanity.
Hmm.
Uh, in the same way that the Cain and Abel story, this is the best case scenario I can imagine as for where we come from.
Okay. Yeah.
The stories as they lay, where Cain kills Abel, I think it's great because it allowed me to get to this point. As far
Hmm.
as you know, instead of the story being told to me, it allowed me to create it.
Hmm.
And I think that we all have that ability to create our own story. And to where you want to go, to what you want to believe. I don't know if this is, some people believe it's a game or, some sort of program. I can go with that. A lot of those arguments seem reasonable. Um, but again, it's just another story. And so
Yeah.
I think that the best thing for humanity is to find and create a purposeful story for yourself. The best
Hmm.
one you can imagine. I think, in the Bible it says in the beginning God created man in his image. Like
Mm,
image is like imagination. And I think we have that within ourselves to use our imagination to create the best story for ourselves. I really believe it's
mm.
our duty to create the best story because if you had the choice to create the best story or the worst story, why would you focus on the worst story?
Mm.
Don't you want the best for yourself?
Yeah, I sure hope so. Yeah, that's so. Would you say that with when it comes to these, especially older stories, it's important for us to kind of reinterpret them for ourselves and not just take someone else's retelling or their version of it. Is that fair to say?
I absolutely think that's fair to say. I think it's up to you to whatever is being put upon you, whatever story is being put upon you. I think it's up to you to dissect that story and
Mm,
see for yourself if that's a story you want to buy. Like we're
mm,
going to the store, we don't buy everything in the store. You can buy the story if that story resonates with you and it makes sense and you like where it's going, make that a part of your life.
hmm,
If you don't like it, take it apart and put it back together the way you see fit for yourself.
hmm. So what do you think that does to, or is there? Let me ask it this way, I guess. What does that do to the historicity of like maybe just in our personal lives, or even if we look back to old stories? Um, yeah, how does that affect it, or should it affect it, as far as like what actually happened versus how we're interpreting what happened?
For the most part, I think it's irrelevant.
Mm,
I don't think it's that important. The actual event that happened. I think it's more important what you take from that story, what
mm,
you're able to process within yourself. I think that's more reasonable to focus on as far as your story. You
hmm.
mentioned the history of it. It's like his
Yeah.
story. Like whose story? His story. Whose story is it? And I think it's within yourself to create your story, our story.
Mm. Yeah. So taking that, what's the moral, ethical lesson that we can draw from this, and how does that shape who we become and who we are?
I don't I don't know. I don't know about
Okay.
morals or ethics part of it.
Okay.
Uh,
That's I kind of added that in to see. I was like, well, see see what you have to say.
yeah, I don't know the answer. Honestly, I'm not really even sure morally what these stories mean. I just
Mm,
know the significance of the impact in my life.
mm,
I don't know if it's moral. I'm not even too sure what moral means right now.
mm. Yeah, that's that's fair. That's an important definition to in order to say yes or no to it. So what would you say right now, if you're comfortable sharing this, um, are some of the bigger areas that you're considering or thinking about, even on like a philosophical level? Where do you find yourself at right now? I know that's a personal question, so you don't have to answer it if you don't want.
No, I'm not sure I understand the question, but I'll do my very best.
Okay, that's fair.
Uh,
That's
um,
fair.
I find myself at peace with myself
Mm,
now and where I'm going. Philosophically speaking,
yeah,
I like where I'm going. You can take it to the extreme where I just shared like where I think humanity's going,
yeah.
but I like where I'm going. If things play out the way that I see, I will die in peace, doing my very best to share the best of myself. And I
Mm.
like that.
Hopefully, add more clarity to my question.
Okay.
I'm trying. Sometimes I
You're
know
doing
the
great.
questions are ambiguous, so it's like, you could take that a few ways.
I'm like, is he doing this on purpose? I'll do my best.
No, I appreciate you humoring me. I like I'm it's so funny because I actually just said this last night to a friend. I was like, I definitely find myself more of a philosopher than I do a theologian. And the reason is because I like just big abstract ideas. and just kind of like just let's think through it and see what the consistency is with it. I tend to find myself there, which means I can ask really big, obscure questions sometimes, and just like, what are you really trying to say? But I find it more fun.
I like it. I
um,
like it because I can kind of
Thank you.
take it where I want to go.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. There's some freedom in there. um, well, so I guess with because you said that when it comes to the idea of like morality, like I'm not even sure I could really even tell you what that word even means or what those thoughts are. Um, and then pairing that with it's like, okay, I want to be the best that I can, and I want to be the best for myself, and I want to be the best for the people in my life and the people around me. um, I guess how do we recognize, okay, what is the best? Like, what does that
Yeah.
look like as far as like what is good and what is not good?
Yeah, that's a fair question. You know when you're at your best when you are well rested. If you're
Mm,
tired, you're not going to make good choices. If you're hungry, you're not going to make good choices. If you eat really heavy foods, you're not going to make good choices. So it's not the best of you. If you put yourself in a position where you slept great, you ate the foods that match your type, that where you're good, you're satisfied with what you've eaten, but you're not overloaded. You're moving your body. This is you at your best. We can agree that you're making the best choices possible when you're well fed, well rested, and you have your good friends around you. You're having good conversations. Like, what good conversations are. When you're judgy or critical, that's not the
mm,
best of you. As opposed to, it's not that you don't question things. It's that the way you say it. So you don't shun people away. You don't scare people away with your judgy way of acting.
mm,
We know
mm,
what's best for us. We know, even if we've stumbled upon it by accident, we know when we do something that benefits us, when it's good for us.
mm.
And one of the things that I like to say is I like to say that God is too smart for God's own good, and the devil is just dumb enough to know what's good for him. And within that, you can find your best. Your best today maybe is better than yesterday. Perhaps you can improve.
Hmm.
We know what our best is, and we know how to get ourselves there if we're really paying attention.
So that idea of like, okay, what is my best is more of an internalized view where it's like you know it. You might not be able to articulate it, but you know it when you feel it. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say.
Okay, cool. I want to make sure I don't misrepresent
Would
anything.
you agree? Would you agree with that? Do you know when you're doing your best?
It's a good question, and it's an interesting idea. Because I think for me, I think about I guess where my ignorance lies and where it doesn't, if that makes sense. So I guess you've brought up even like healthy eating, which I think is such an important thing. Um, it's funny for myself because there's definitely been times where I'm like, oh, I think I'm eating well and I think I feel good. And then someone's like, hey, actually, this is better for you. You should try this. Like if there's something that you're allergic to and it's like, oh, I'm having this like micro allergic reaction that I've just kind of gotten used to having.
Mm.
And then someone tells me about that and I remove that thing and I'm like, oh, actually, I feel way better. I didn't know that I could feel better because I thought I was feeling at my best. So that's where I feel like for me, it's kind of like again, going back to that like philosophical, like this is really complex.
It is
um,
complex.
because it's like, oh, I thought I knew what was best for me, but then someone helped me realize, oh, there's actually something better.
Yeah. And now you're doing your best.
Yeah,
You
as
know,
far as I know
because
now.
now you have new information. So like in your example, if
Yeah,
if you did that, what your friend suggested, and you realized that was better,
yeah,
but then the next day you just went back to the old habit where it's not your
mm,
best. You knew better, but you didn't
yeah,
do your best that day. You didn't do it. And then the next day you have another opportunity. That's what's great about this. Like you can always do better to your and to your own definition. Like because we're evolving creatures. Our ideas are evolving, and what was good for
Mm,
you yesterday doesn't mean it's going to be good for you today because, we're
mm,
learning, we're growing. And our bodies are also evolving. We're aging. The things that, I used to think kale was great for me. And then I realized
mm,
it wasn't, and then I realized, and then I found a bunch of people, hey, kale's not great for me. And then you
hmm.
meet a lot of people where it is great for them. And so it's like, that's why
Yeah,
the best is relative, is a relative term to your own belief
true.
system. And only you know the truth. That's what I would consider God. God is the only one that knows the truth about
Hmm.
yourself. And you're the only one that knows the truth.
Well, I think it's interesting with that idea, even where, because I kind of introduced like the third party person adding more information in here, because it seems like it's also like a collaborative thing where it's like, yeah, I wouldn't be able to know that, maybe eventually I could figure it out, but most likely it's like I'd probably just do what I do, but it takes that person that's removed from me with different information to kind of help me become a better person. So I think what's interesting, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this because um, it's like, yeah, there is that personal journey of if I have like the baseline best information and I'm falling below that, and it's like, oh, I know I'm not performing at the best to the knowledge that I have. Um, but that line can change by somebody else coming in where it might not have if it was just me isolated.
Absolutely. I think we need people around us, people we trust and people we love to point things out in us. Like, hey,
Yeah.
you are doing great. You're being really hard on yourself. You're doing great. I wish I was doing this the way you're doing it.
Mm.
And sometimes you need that little angle where it's like, hey, maybe I am doing better than I thought.
Yeah. Yeah. But I guess it's interesting because I feel like from that, is there an argument that um, it's like it takes something that's outside of us to be better? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I
Yes.
don't know if that sounds like a trap, but I don't mean it to be.
No, I suppose it does. I suppose that you do need that outside point of view, to look outside yourself,
Yeah.
and people play that role for us. They
Mm.
say that, like in a mirror, like, other people are a reflection of ourselves, and so we're attracted to, people. It's like we're attracting the best part about ourselves. Like this is a good person to be around. They make me feel good. They have great conversation, like our best friends,
Hmm.
and they're really the best part about ourselves. Like they're a reflection of us.
Yeah, and it's cool because I think that that can show a level of why community is so important. Um, and it is like, yeah, we're all doing this. We're all doing this together. I guess going even back to the beginning with like the monkey analogy, it's like, yeah, all of those monkeys are living this part of their life together, and they're having shared experiences, and they know that if one climbs up to grab the bananas, they're going to get rained on. That's not good for everybody. It's not good for themselves. So there's that community aspect there of like, hey, let's try to make sure we're all going to get the best outcome here.
Absolutely.
Well, I do want to ask, do you have anything you'd like to kind of land our time here today with?
Look, man, I think you've done really. I feel like you've brought the best out of me today. Like,
Oh, thank you.
I don't. The truth is, I don't have that much to say. Like, I have a certain way, but I'm more of an introverted person, so I do a lot of
Hmm.
self analyze, a lot of thinking to myself.
Hmm.
And so I enjoy conversations like this, especially with someone like you who has an ability to bring things out of me or make me think in different ways. And you do it very innocently and curiously. And I applaud you for that. I really do
Thank you.
believe, today you've already brought the best out of me. I think I've shared what I have to share. I think it's, I don't have, like I said, I don't have that much to share. I'm mostly, content with my boring life, and so, and so just having a moment like this to share with someone, uh, I don't take it for granted. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you saying that too. Um, as I said even before we started recording, my goal with all these is let's have a productive conversation. Even knowing, and I say it kind of blatantly at first, usually of like, yeah, we may not agree on everything, and we probably don't. But at the end of it, it's like we can still have a conversation, and we can still help each other look good. As
Yeah.
far as like, let's be able to express what we want to express. So I'm very happy to hear that you were able to share what you wanted to share. Especially me as an extrovert, more extroverted person. One of my favorite things is getting introverts to pull them out of their shell a little bit.
Great. Powerful.
So I love
You've done it.
it. Yes.
Yeah,
I
we
do
should do
have.
it again. You should do it again because
Let's do
introverts, they
it.
get more comfortable with time. So we should do it again
I
sometime.
love that. And I know that as time goes on too, your ideas will start to develop more and more as you're continually on this journey. So yeah, I'd love to. As I say, you're in the tipsy verse now. So
Oh, I love it. I love it. Next time, let's do it a little bit more later in the day, and I'll join you on a little tipsy adventure. We'll bring a flat Earth
that'd be
guy
good.
on. It'll
Oh,
be
that'd be
fun.
so good. I gotta hunt one of those down. If you're watching and you're a flat earther, let's go.
Call us.
You've got an audience now.
I love it.
And I will ask the stick question again. I do have one more question for you.
Sure.
I usually ask this at the front half of the episode, and I totally forgot. But since you brought it
Okay.
up, what are your thoughts, and have they changed on alcohol?
Oh, I like alcohol. I think it's fun, but I also don't think it's the best for me
Mm,
to do. Like any other practice. I think there's better things to do with my time. I do
fair.
like I I do like a glass of wine. I do like. I think it's fun. It makes conversations funner.
Yeah,
Uh, but also like I don't want to do it I don't do it every day. I don't like to do it because it's just not good for me. And I know what's
yeah,
good for me.
yeah. That's cool and very on brand too.
Yeah.
No, I think that's the cool thing about it being used well. Even when we look inside of scripture, how it talks about it, it's like, well, it's there to for celebration to be made to make glad, and it does have this very cool effect if used properly for a very
Sure.
social event to like it helps people socialize sometimes. And
Absolutely.
you're right, it's fun.
It's
And
fun.
we all know, I think we all know it's not good for us. Like, it's not the best.
Yeah, we know that.
Yeah.
We still have the opportunity to choose to do it. It's fine. I don't think God's going to judge you. I don't think you're going to hell. I think
Yeah.
we can enjoy it. I think these things are here for us to enjoy.
Yeah,
They
I
call
agree.
it spirits. Alcohol, they call it
Mm,
spirits. So I think
yeah.
there's whether it be an unconscious or undeliberate way that these words resonate in our system, and there's a reason why it's
Hmm.
called spirits because it awakens the spirit within us. Whether we
Yeah.
know different types of drunks where you're a good, fun, happy drunk, or you're just angry and aggressive, and that's the spirit in you.
What does it mean if I just get tired?
I mean, is it nighttime or is it daytime?
That's fair. I love it. Well, hey, thank you again for joining today. Thanks for being willing to share and for my big bold obscure questions at times.
I love it.
And I'm excited for us to get a flat earth around here and do it again.
Let's do it, Paul. I really appreciate that, and I appreciate you, man. How old are
Thank
you,
you.
by the way? You don't mind my asking?
No, not at all. I actually I turned 30 last year. I was going to try to say it in a way of like I'm freshly 30, but it's like no, it's actually been I'm definitely 30.
I love it. I love it. No, it's cool, man. I love what you're doing. It's so playful, and I love your angle and your way of asking questions and your ability to tell stories and receive them. Powerful.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that a lot. And thank you guys for listening, for watching, however you're enjoying this. Um, leave a comment, leave a like. Let us know what your thoughts are, and let's keep the conversation going. That's what we're all about here. And I will talk to you hopefully sooner rather than later.